this program, How Do I Separate in Love? We want to invite you to step outside of yourself. Step outside of your thought process. Step outside of your opinions. Step outside of your own personal belief system. And be willing to just hear today. I feel that some of the things that we say are not going to initially be received because different people are in different spaces. And emotions are a very powerful thing. Anger is very powerful. Frustration is very powerful. And our stories are very powerful. So I want to invite you to step outside of your story. Because truly, if we desire better, we have to be willing to hear better and apply better to our lives. I believe that this is going to be a very enlightening segment today. How do I separate in love? And I want to thank you for joining us for this program today. I want to share also with you that, we're coming to you because we have rendered ourselves available. This was a vision that was given to me over 10 years, probably more like 15 years ago. And I was very passionate about it the moment that it presented itself. But I've come to realize that everything is for a season and everything is for a time. And I know that Let's R.A.P.P. is for this season and it is for this time. And even as we sit before you and we rap so that you can get the message through us, I want you all to know today that we are experiencing the same things that we're talking about. It's crazy because we would just finish a segment and we would go through a challenge that brings back the words of what we were talking about in the segment. So we're not here as authorities. We're here in the capacity of teacher and student at the same time. And,
Absolutely.
And also very grateful for those opportunities to be able to hear the words back that came from your voice. I've recognized that with Spirit for some time now, and it just freaks me out how Spirit will use your words to convict you or to check you or to help you in your situation. And we have a tendency as a race of human beings to be so quick with advice and so able to give advice, free with advice. But when it comes time to taking advice, we sometimes put up blocks.
The old folks used to say, have a term for that. It's bitter. It's sweet on the tongue and bitter to the stomach.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's true. But that's the beautiful thing about when you start living the miracle, because your life really is that. It's a miracle. It's a gift. It is such a sacred relationship of oneness, of unity, and we're in these individuated, fragmented expressions of the divine. And we take on these personas, and we depending on how separate we are from that purpose, we begin to think that we're living some life without meaning, or just walking around going through but when you start living the miracle, you realize that what we speak, the heart confesses, the mouth confesses what the heart feels. So where your belief systems are truly are acknowledged in the moments of which you speak. And then there's times when we haven't completed the process, right? And so step into that and taking action is a way of fulfilling and completing the lesson.
I want us to start there. I'm so grateful to how they just bring things in. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And we spoke of key components to a relationship, and one of them was communication. And I am very, very attuned to that scripture. I believe if it comes out of your mouth, it is in your heart. But a lot of times we say things from a manipulative standpoint rather than a sincere standpoint. So I want us to talk about communicating in separation or in relationships where we feel that we have reached a place of it is necessary to separate. Speaking from a manipulative place and speaking from a sincere place, because a lot of times you say things, and this is one of the things that I say all the time. What you say, you cannot take back. So think about what you say before you say it. There was a saying, I don't really hear it that much anymore, but when I was growing up, it was very prevalent. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never harm me. Lies! Lies from wherever lies come from, because words play over and over and over again. And so it's important when you're about to say something, because a lot of times we'll say things because we're hurt. You know, hurting people hurt people. And if somebody says something to hurt you, your intention in that moment is, oh, I'm going to get them back. This is not going to go down like this. I'm going to say something. And we do that. I don't care if you're 5 or if you're 95. As humans, we have a tendency to do that, especially when we're operating from a lower consciousness perspective.
Right.
Instead of stepping into your true self and your higher self and operating from a place of love on a continuous basis. And even though we try to do that on a regular basis, the scripture says, all have sinned and fallen short of the glory. And so we fall short. And that I know I do. I'm going to speak for myself in that sometimes. But what is your intention in what you're communicating? Even in the separation, are you trying to be manipulative? Are you trying to be hurtful? Are you trying to leave this person as hurt as you are because you don't see any way for this thing to work out? Or are you being really sincere? Because if it comes out of here, it's in here. There's a part of it in here. You might have embellished it. You might have stretched it a little bit. But at the root of it,
something is there.
there's truth.
Where there's what they say, where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's I definitely believe that as well. You know, if we speak something, there's something about it that's anchored in a seed that is still present. Whether it's taking 95%, you know, of space in your being, or it's only taking up 0.5% space in your being, doesn't matter. There's something there that shows a presence and should be looked at and examined.
Yeah.
And you know, I want to kind of go back to what you said about the sticks and stones may break your bones, but words can never hurt you. You know, I think this is an important point to illuminate, that there are many mindsets or principles of truth in our world, things that can take us to another level. And we have to, this is where the term appropriation keeps coming back to me. Appropriate. 3 sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt, can never hurt me, is one concept that has to be used in appropriation, where we use that to move people past someone saying something to them and they can't move forward, and that they don't have that kind of power to desensitize them to the invisible anchors that they've placed on, or invisible shackles rather, that they've placed on themselves that keep them from moving forward. However, at a higher level, yes, the words do hurt. They create trauma knots, and depending on how we use them to heal. So you got one level that's 3-dimensional thinking. Another level of acknowledgement is 4- and 5-dimensional thinking, where you really do operate from a different paradigm and realize that there's something energetically going on with words. But at a very surface level, the words that can never hurt me is more so for people who are operating from that place and they aren't ready to acknowledge energy. They aren't ready to acknowledge, you know, all the other things that kind of come into play. But I think most of the people that are coming into play with Let's Rap are ready for another level of thinking. They are ready to rise above personal perception. So I think it's an important point that you've made, that no longer, again, holds a truth, because we are operating from a different space.
Right.
So.
Yep. And, you know, as we're talking today about how do I separate in love, I invite you to go back to our last program. How can I save my relationship? Because we spoke about key components in relationships, but those key components to having a successful relationship, but those components I feel also can and should be applied to even if you've come to the end of the relationship or you feel a need to separate. Because first and foremost, it's very important that you're honest. That you're honest with yourself, first and foremost, and that you're honest also with your partner. And honestly understanding that if you have children together, your relationship is never going to be over. You're going to continue to be in relationship. Okay, you might not be married, You might decide that you're going to get a divorce and totally end the contract of the relationship, but your relationship is never going to be over, and it shouldn't be. And this is one of the things that a lot of people make the mistake when they separate and they do have children. It becomes all about themselves and their own emotional pain and their trauma knots and what was done to them, what the other party did to them, what they did to the other party. And the children are watching everything that's happening. The children are feeling the energetic vibration of everything that is going on. The children are being traumatized as well. The children are being affected. The children are experiencing a divorce. And a lot of times, as adults, was very guilty of this in my first marriage. It's so much about you and what you're feeling that you don't regard these children that are around, and you say things in the front of the children that hurts them. And so now you have the children in the middle of the two, and they love mommy and they love daddy, and they don't know which way to go, so they feel torn, and so something starts to happen in them. And so that's why you find a lot of times when marriages separate or divorce, the children start to withdraw, or the children change. The children would go from straight A students to getting D's and F's in school, not being able to concentrate, not wanting to concentrate, not even putting in an effort anymore to do anything. And so I really want us to talk about that, because that is a very sensitive area for me, because I experienced it. And I had to go back and apologize to my children. I had to sincerely apologize to my children, because I realized that I affected them on a great level, especially my eldest was affected on a great level. And there are times too when we give to children things that children are not capable of handling. You're telling them all of this stuff. So how do we separate in love, for love, by love, letting love be the motivation?
Right. Well, I think that before we even go into really breaking it down deeply, we have to get to the point that we identify why are we coming to the point of thinking that the relationship is over. Mm-hmm. And also identifying a point that you made off camera, which is just because you think the relationship is over, or you choose to do something that severs the relationship in some way, does not mean the relationship is complete.
Right.
Which is a very really, really, really deep point that we definitely need to drive home a little bit further. I think thinking about what the relationship, why are we coming to the point that we think that the relationship is over? Why do we want to sever ties with this relationship? Is there a certain level of abuse going on? Do we feel like we just don't get along? Have our goals changed?
Unfaithfulness, because that's the main reason for a lot of relationships.
Yeah, unfaithfulness.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so many different dynamics right now. I mean, we couldn't possibly cover all of them, but we will attempt to cover the ones that we feel like are the most critical. I think the first thing that when we start talking about whether the relationship was over, if we feel the relationship is over, that we need to have a conversation. Mm-hmm. We need to have a conversation, and the conversation is the first step to even exploring exactly where everything is. And that's being able to come face to face, with the things that make us uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And even in the exploration of these things, because if you're gonna start talking about children and you're gonna start identifying your responsibility to the children as parents, you have to first take responsibility with yourselves. Right. Because you are not gonna take on the children if you can't get past this initial piece, which is with your spouse or your significant other, or now of course there are other relationships like parent-child relationships and siblings also, and we're speaking expansively about everything, but right now the focus is a little bit on the significant other aspects of relationships. But you can use these same ideals in that as well. When you come to a relationship, the first thing, when you come to a point where you are considering severing the relationship, a conversation, would you say a conversation needs to take place?